A haughty magnate dismissed the help of a humble boy who knocked on his door, but upon discovering that he was the only hope to save his dying daughter, his world changed forever. Secrets buried for decades came to light, transforming not only one life, but an entire worldview. A moving story that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, like and comment from where you are watching. Rafael Mendoza stormed out of the hospital, slamming the glass door so hard that a security guard looked up, alarmed. The afternoon sun hit him full force, but even that didn't diminish his fury. Another doctor, another consultation, another grim diagnosis. His daughter Elena continued to worsen and no one seemed able to offer a solution. "Incompetent," he muttered as he adjusted his Italian silk tie. His bespoke dark grey suit contrasted with the pallor of his face, tense from sleepless nights and constant worry. Rafael wasn't used to not being able to solve problems. As the owner of Construtora Mendoza, one of the largest companies in the country, he was accustomed to his money opening all doors. But the degenerative disease consuming Elena seemed to mock his wealth and power. His driver, Martin, opened the door of the black Mercedes as soon as he saw him approaching. "To the office, sir?" Rafael shook his head. "Home. I need to see Elena." The journey was silent. Rafael looked out the window without really seeing the streets that passed. In his mind, there was only the increasingly debilitated face of his 11-year-old daughter, his only family since Natalia, his wife, passed away some time ago. Upon arriving at his mansion in the upscale neighborhood of Colinas do Sol, Rafael found an unusual commotion. Vittoria, the housekeeper who looked after Elena in his absence, ran to him with an altered expression. "Mr. Mendoza, there's a boy at the entrance. He says he can help Elena, but he doesn't want to talk to anyone but you. We tried to send him away, but—" Rafael frowned. "A boy? What kind of joke is this?" Without waiting for an answer, he walked to the main entrance where a 12-year-old boy waited sitting on the marble steps. He wore clean but visibly worn clothes, a faded blue t-shirt, beige pants too short for his height, and worn-out sneakers. His black, curly hair framed a face with delicate features and light brown skin. The most striking feature, however, were his eyes, large, dark, and with an unsettling intensity. "Who are you, and what are you doing on my property?" Rafael asked in an authoritative tone. The boy looked him directly in the eye without blinking or showing intimidation in the face of the imposing figure of the businessman. "I'm Ulysses," he replied in a calm but firm voice. "I can cure your daughter." Rafael let out a dry, bitter laugh. "You? Some kid? The best specialist in the world can't cure her, and you expect me to believe that you can?" "The doctors are looking in the wrong place," Ulysses replied, his gaze fixed and unsettling. "I know where the problem is." Something in that gaze made Rafael shiver. It wasn't normal the way that boy looked at him without blinking, as if he could see right through him. "Who sent you? Is this some kind of scam? Because if it is—" "No one sent me," Ulysses interrupted. "I learned about your daughter because I saw you at the hospital. You were crying in the hallway when you thought no one was watching." Rafael paled. It was true. Days ago, after receiving particularly discouraging news, he had briefly broken down in a deserted hospital corridor. "You were spying on me?" "No. I was waiting for my mother. She cleans the hospital at night," Ulysses replied naturally. "But I could feel your pain. It was very strong." Rafael ran a hand over his face, suddenly exhausted. He didn't have time for this nonsense. "Look, kid, I appreciate your concern, but this is no joke. My daughter is seriously ill, and I don't need you to give me false hope. So please go away before I call security." He turned, ready to enter the house, when Ulysses's voice stopped him. "Your daughter doesn't have a degenerative disease." Rafael froze. He turned slowly. "What did you say?" "The doctors are wrong. It's not degenerative. It's poisoning." The businessman turned to the boy, this time kneeling down to be at his height, a mixture of fury and despair in his eyes. "Who told you that? How do you know about my daughter's diagnosis?" "No one told me," Ulysses replied, unfazed. "I know because I can feel it. I've always been able to. My mother says I have a gift." Rafael examined the boy's face, looking for signs of deception. He found none. Only that intense, unsettlingly adult look in a child's face. "Assuming I believed you, what kind of poisoning would it be? I need to see her to be sure." The idea of allowing a stranger, and even less an unknown boy, to approach Elena was absurd. However, Rafael was desperate. They had tried experimental therapies, cutting-edge medications. Consultations with specialists from 3 continents. Nothing had worked. How do I know you're not trying to deceive us? Or worse, hurt her? Ulysses smiled for the first time, and his smile completely transformed his severe face, making him look like a child again. I don't want your money, Mr. Mendoza, and I would never harm someone who is suffering. Raphael stood up, still hesitant. All his instincts told him to throw that boy off his property, but when it came to Elena, rationality had stopped guiding his decisions a long time ago. 5 minutes, he finally conceded. I'll give you 5 minutes with my daughter, but I'll be present the whole time, and if you do anything suspicious, you won't need more time, Ulysses assured, standing up. And I understand your concern. Raphael guided the boy through the luxurious mansion. Ulysses walked calmly, observing everything with curiosity but without astonishment, as if the works of art and designer furniture were common objects to him. Upon reaching Elena's room, Raphael stopped with his hand on the doorknob. One more thing. My daughter doesn't know that her condition is terminal. She believes she's getting better. If you say anything that scares her, I won't scare her, Ulysses promised. Elena's room was large and bright, decorated in pastel shades. Despite the cheerful atmosphere, the medical equipment scattered around the room, a heart monitor, IV stands, a wheelchair folded in a corner, evidenced the seriousness of the situation. Elena was sitting on the bed, reading a book. Despite her pallor and extreme thinness, she was still a pretty girl, with large blue eyes like her father's and light brown hair that fell in waves over her shoulders. Upon seeing Raphael enter, her face lit up with a smile. Daddy, you're back early. Hi, Princess, Raphael replied, kissing her forehead. I brought you a visitor. Eleanor looked at Ulysses with curiosity. Hi, I'm Elena. Who are you? I'm Ulysses. Your father invited me to meet you. Raphael raised an eyebrow at the lie but said nothing. Elena seemed intrigued. Are you the son of one of my father's friends? No, Ulysses replied, approaching the bed. I'm someone who wants to help you. Elena tilted her head, confused. Help me, are you a doctor? She giggled. You look too young. I'm not a doctor, Ulysses confirmed, smiling slightly. But I can see things that doctors can't see. May I? He extended his hand to her. Elena looked at her father, who nodded tensely. The girl placed her hand on Ulysses's. The change was instantaneous. Ulysses's expression transformed, his eyes narrowed, and his breathing quickened. He began to mutter something, so low that it was inaudible. Raphael took a step forward, alarmed, but Ulysses had already released Elena's hand. It's in her bones, he said finally, and it comes from below. What do you mean? Raphael asked, confused. The source of the poisoning is under this house, Ulysses explained, now looking at the floor as if he could see through it. Heavy metals. They're in the water she uses. Not the water she drinks, but the water she touches. They're absorbed through the skin. Raphael frowned, incredulous. That's ridiculous. The water in this house is regularly tested. It's perfectly safe. Not all the water, Ulysses insisted. Only the water that reaches this room. Elena watched the exchange with wide eyes, alternating her gaze between her father and the strange boy who spoke of poisoning. Daddy, what is he talking about? She finally asked. Raphael approached his daughter, taking her hand. It's nothing, dear, he's just kidding. I'm not kidding. Ulysses's voice rose slightly, for the first time showing emotion. The pipes that reach this bathroom, he pointed to a door leading to Elena's private bathroom, are contaminated. There's something in the basement, something old and toxic that has infiltrated this specific line. Raphael felt a surge of anger. He had allowed that boy into his house near his vulnerable daughter, and now he was saying nonsense that could scare her. I think that's enough, he said firmly. Elena needs to rest. But Daddy, Elena began. I said that's enough, Raphael cut him off. Then, addressing Ulysses, thank you for your visit, but I think you should leave now. Ulysses didn't seem surprised or offended by the harsh tone. If you want your daughter to get better, you should check what I say. Break down the wall behind the bathroom. You'll find corroded pipes and underneath something buried that should never have been there. Out! Raphael exclaimed, losing his patience. Ulysses nodded, said goodbye to Elena with a gesture, and left the room without protesting. Raphael followed him, making sure he was actually leaving the mansion. Don't come back here, he warned at the entrance. And thank your lucky stars I didn't call the police for trying to deceive us with this nonsense. Ulysses stopped before going down the steps, turning to look at Raphael one last time. "I don't want your money, Mr. Mendoza. I never did. I just wanted to help because I saw your pain and because I can feel your daughters." He paused. "When you're ready to listen, you know where to find me. I'll be at the hospital with my mother." With those words, the boy left, leaving Raphael with a mixture of fury, confusion, and, much against his will, a small seed of doubt. That night, while Elena slept, Raphael couldn't get Ulysses's words out of his head. Break down the wall behind the bathroom. It was absurd, of course. The mansion was relatively new, built less than a decade ago with the best materials and by the best professionals, many of them employees of his own company. However, the certainty with which the boy had spoken, that penetrating gaze. On impulse, Raphael silently entered Elena's bathroom. It was a luxurious space, with Italian marble and French metals. Everything immaculate, shiny. How could there be anything toxic there? He knelt beside the bathtub, examining the marble joints. Everything seemed perfect. He stood up, feeling ridiculous for letting himself be influenced by the words of a boy. That's when he noticed an almost imperceptible stain on the white marble, exactly where the wall met the floor. A greenish stain, like rust or mold. He ran his finger over it and felt a strange, corrosive texture. His heart pounded. With trembling hands, he took his phone and called Javier, his head of maintenance. "I need you to come right now and bring tools to break down a wall." Despite the late hour, Javier arrived in less than 30 minutes, confused but obedient. Raphael took him to Elena's bathroom and pointed to the wall. "I want to see what's behind this wall. Specifically, I want to see the pipes." Javier looked perplexed. "Sir, are you sure? Breaking down this wall? It's not a simple job, and the marble can be replaced." Raphael cut him off. "Do it now." Carefully, so as not to wake Elena, Javier began to work. First, he carefully removed the marble tiles, revealing the plaster underneath. Then, with a special drill, he made a hole large enough to see inside. "Shine a light here," Raphael ordered, handing him a flashlight. Javier directed the beam of light into the hole, and both men gasped. The pipes were severely corroded, with a greenish liquid dripping slowly. But the most disturbing thing was what could be seen beyond. An old metal container, partially buried in the ground, from which that corrosion emanated. "My God," Javier murmured. "I've never seen anything like this. It looks like a barrel of chemical waste, but that's impossible. When we built, all soil studies were done according to regulations." Raphael felt short of breath. Ulysses's words echoed in his mind. "There's something in the basement, something old and toxic that has infiltrated this specific line. I want analyses of this waste immediately," he ordered, "and I want to know exactly what effects they can have on a person exposed to them regularly." The next morning, Raphael cancelled all his meetings. With deep, dark circles from a sleepless night, he waited for the preliminary results that Javier had promised to deliver. When the head of maintenance arrived with a folder in his hand, his serious expression confirmed Raphael's worst fears. "It's a barrel of chemical waste from an old factory that existed on this land before urbanization," Javier explained. "It contains several heavy metals, mainly mercury and lead. They must have buried it illegally decades ago, and no one detected it during construction because it's exactly at the edge of the property, where exhaustive tests weren't done." Raphael felt nauseous. "And the effects on a person?" Javier handed him a paper. "These are the symptoms of poisoning by these metals. I've marked them." Raphael went through the list with growing horror. Fatigue, weight loss, muscle weakness, neurological problems. All the symptoms that Elena had gradually presented. "The bathtub water," he murmured. "Elena takes long baths every day. She's been absorbing these poisons through her skin for years," Javier completed. "I'm sorry, sir." Raphael dropped the paper, his world collapsing and rebuilding at the same time. On one hand, the devastation of knowing that he himself, by building that house, had put his daughter in danger. On the other, a fierce hope. If it was poisoning and not a degenerative disease, then there was treatment. Elena could recover. "I want the best toxicology specialists," he ordered, "today." But even as he gave instructions, a question kept nagging at him. How did Ulysses know? The answer to that question would have to wait. The first step was to save Elena. Over the following weeks, Elena underwent intensive chelation therapy, a specific therapy to eliminate heavy metals from the body. She was transferred to a hotel room while the mansion underwent extensive environmental remediation. The doctors, initially skeptical of the new theory, were impressed when tests confirmed the poisoning. The one who had insisted most on the degenerative diagnosis admitted, visibly embarrassed, that they had never considered the possibility of environmental poisoning. It's extremely rare, especially in a house of this level, he justified, and the symptoms can perfectly mimic certain degenerative diseases. For Raphael, however, the medical explanations mattered little. His only interest was that Elena, for the first time in a long time, was beginning to show signs of improvement. Color was gradually returning to her cheeks. Her appetite was increasing. Muscle weakness was decreasing. It was like seeing a withered flower slowly revive. One afternoon, while Elena slept after her treatment, Raphael made a decision. He needed to find Ulysses. He drove to the hospital where he had first seen the boy. After asking for the cleaning staff, he finally found a woman named Isabel, who had a son who matched the description. Ulysses? Yes, he's my son, Isabel confirmed, a woman with a kind, tired face. Did he do something wrong? Because if he did, I guarantee you— No, he didn't do anything wrong, Raphael interrupted. On the contrary, he helped my daughter in a way I still don't understand. Isabel seemed to calm down, although still cautious. Ulysses is special. He always has been. Since he was little, he's known things he shouldn't know, felt things others can't feel. She paused. The doctors say it's part of his condition. His condition. Ulysses has autism, Isabel explained, a type they call high functioning. He's brilliant at many things, but he has difficulties with others. He has difficulty understanding social norms, for example, and sometimes he says things that bother people because they are too direct or too accurate. Raphael nodded, beginning to understand. I need to talk to him. It's important. He's home now. I can give you our address if you want. An hour later, Raphael was standing in front of a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Nothing further from his luxurious mansion, but clean and dignified. Ulysses opened the door before Raphael could knock, as if he were waiting for him. I knew you would come, he said simply. Raphael, normally confident and eloquent, was speechless. Elena is getting better, Ulysses said finally, not as a question, but as a statement. Yes, Raphael replied. Oh, you were right. About everything. We found the toxic barrel exactly where you said it would be. He paused. How did you know? Ulysses shrugged. I just know. I've always known things. I see patterns that others don't see. I feel connections. Raphael nodded slowly. He had come prepared to offer money, gratitude, whatever it was, but in the face of that extraordinary boy, all the words seemed inadequate. May I come in? He finally asked. Ulysses nodded, opening the way. The apartment was small but cozy, with simple furniture and walls covered with complex drawings that Raphael assumed were Ulysses's work. I want to thank you, Raphael began, sitting down on a worn sofa. What you did for Elena, I have no words. You don't need to thank me, Ulysses replied, sitting down in front of him. I did it because I could. Even so, I would like to compensate you in some way. Anything you need, anything you want. To his surprise, Ulysses smiled. There's something I might want, but I don't think it's what you expect. Raphael leaned forward, intrigued. What is it? I want you to, the next time you see someone like me, different, strange in your eyes, not judge them so quickly. Ulysses looked him directly in the eye. You called me a kid. You thought I was a con man. You almost didn't listen to me. Raphael felt himself blushing with shame. It was true. He had disdained Ulysses based solely on his appearance, his age, his evident lack of resources. True, he confessed. I judged you unfairly, and I almost lost the chance to save my daughter because of it. People see me and jump to conclusions, Ulysses continued, that I'm peculiar, that I'm naive, that I don't deserve attention. But we all have something to contribute, even if we don't fit others' expectations. Raphael recalled the times he had dismissed employees for not conforming to his ideal of a professional, the times he had ignored opinions because they came from someone he considered inferior, and now his daughter was alive thanks to an autistic child. He had almost thrown off his property. I don't promise to change immediately, he finally said. I've been this way for too long, but I assure you I will try, and that I will never forget what you've done for us. Ulysses nodded, satisfied. That's enough. Raphael stood up, feeling unusually light, as if an unknown weight had vanished. There's something else, he said. I want you to get to know Elena better. She's been looking for you. She wants to thank you personally. For the first time, Ulysses seemed genuinely surprised. Really? Really, Raphael confirmed. And if you're okay with it, I'd also like to get to know you better. You and your mother. Ulysses's smile widened, illuminating his face. I'd love that very much. As they said goodbye, Raphael understood that he had searched for explanations for the inexplicable and found something more valuable. A lesson in humility, a reminder that the deepest truths sometimes come from unexpected sources, and perhaps also a new friend. The following months brought a radical change to Rafael Mendoza's life. Elena, with proper treatment, improved every day. Color returned to her cheeks. Her strength grew, and above all, her smile once again lit up the house. The mansion was completely restored after environmental remediation. Not only did they remove the toxic barrel, but they replaced all the pipes and water systems as a preventative measure. Raphael spared no expense, determined to make his home completely safe for his daughter. But the most significant change wasn't physical, but personal. Raphael, known for his relentless severity in the business world, began to see the world with different eyes. When will Ulysses come? Elena asked one afternoon while Raphael read to her. The connection between the two children was instantaneous. Since that first visit, Ulysses became a regular visitor to the mansion. This weekend, Princess. Remember, he has classes during the week. Elena nodded, pleased. I like it when he comes. He knows incredible stories. Raphael smiled. Ulysses, despite his condition, or perhaps because of it, possessed an exceptional mind. His knowledge in areas such as mathematics, astronomy, and medicine surprised everyone, and Elena was fascinated by it. What Raphael didn't anticipate was how much his own relationship with the boy would change. What began as gratitude gradually transformed into genuine affection. He discovered that he enjoyed conversations with Ulysses, which intellectually challenged him and forced him to question his deeply rooted beliefs. Through Ulysses, Raphael came to know and admire Isabel, his mother, a woman who, despite economic difficulties and the challenges of raising a child with special needs alone, retained an admirable dignity and strength. One day, Raphael received a call from Isabel. Her voice sounded tense, worried. Mr. Mendoza, excuse the inconvenience. It's Ulysses. There have been problems at school. Raphael sat up straight in his chair. What kind of problems? Some children have been bothering him. You know how it is. He doesn't understand jokes, intentions. Today he came back with a black eye. Raphael felt a surge of indignation. Have you spoken to the school administration? Yes, but... Isabel hesitated. The public school has limited resources for children like Ulysses. They have suggested transferring him to a specialized center, but I can't afford it. Raphael didn't think twice. Isabel, let me help you. I know an excellent institution for children with special abilities. I appreciate the intention, but I can't accept... I'm not doing this out of charity, Raphael interrupted. I'm doing it because I owe Ulysses my daughter's life, and because he deserves to develop his full potential. After some resistance, Isabel accepted. A week later, Ulysses entered the Horizonte Educational Center, one of the best institutions for autistic children in the country. Raphael managed everything discreetly, respecting Isabel's pride, but ensuring that Ulysses received the best possible education. The transformation was remarkable. In an environment adapted to his needs, with specialized teachers and peers who accepted him, Ulysses flourished. His extraordinary intelligence, previously limited by a system that didn't know how to manage it, finally found its course. Elena, meanwhile, continued to improve. The doctors, initially cautious, now spoke of complete recovery. The terrible experience had strengthened the bond between father and daughter, making Raphael a more present man, more attentive to what truly mattered. One afternoon, while Raphael was working in his office, he received an unexpected call from his assistant. Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Quintero is calling. He insists on speaking to you personally. Raphael frowned. Jorge Quintero owned a rival construction company, known for his dubious practices and aggressiveness in business. Put him through. Mendoza, Quintero's voice sounded falsely kind. I've heard interesting rumors about you lately. They say you've become soft. Raphael tensed. If you have something to say, Quintero, say it directly. All right. I've noticed that you've lost 3 important bids this quarter. That's not like you, and I've heard that you're now accepting proposals from small businesses, even financing social projects. Quintero let out a derisive laugh. Have you hired a publicist, or have you really dedicated yourself to charity? My business decisions are exactly that. Mine, Raphael replied coldly, and I don't have to justify them to you. I was just wondering if the great Rafael Mendoza was still a worthy adversary, Quintero provoked, or if he was losing his touch. Years ago, those words would have enraged Rafael, pushing him to displays of business power, to aggressive decisions to maintain his reputation. But now, you know, Quintero, there was a time when I would have fallen into your game, but I've learned that there are more important things than being the toughest, the most feared. Are you referring to being a loser? The disdain in Quintero's voice was palpable. I'm referring to being a man my daughter can be proud of, Raphael replied. And believe me, that doesn't mean being a loser. It just means having the strength to choose my own battles, for my own reasons. Without waiting for an answer, he hung up. Raphael remained contemplating the window of his office, reflecting on how much he had changed. The ruthless businessman he once was now saw the world differently. He hadn't abandoned his ambitions, but they no longer consumed him. Thanks to Ulysses, he had learned to listen to voices he had previously ignored. He had discovered that true strength wasn't in dominating others, but in having the courage to change, to admit mistakes, to see value where he had previously only seen weakness. And as he contemplated the garden where Elena and Ulysses played in the evening sun, Rafael Mendoza knew that he would never be the man he once was, and that, far from being a loss, was perhaps the greatest gain of his life. The years passed, and spring gave way to summer, then autumn and winter, in a cycle that transformed both the landscape and the lives of those who were part of this story. Elena, fully recovered from her poisoning, had become a radiant and healthy young woman. Her near-death experience had given her an empathy and maturity uncommon for her age. Now she dedicated much of her time to studying medicine, determined to help others as she had once been helped. Ulysses, for his part, had flourished at the Horizonte Educational Center. His exceptional mind, nurtured by an environment that understood and met his special needs, developed abilities that amazed teachers and peers. His ability to see patterns and connections that others didn't perceive had been refined, becoming an invaluable talent. Now he was recognized not for his condition, but for his achievements. And Rafael Mendoza, the man who once built his identity on the strength and fear he inspired, had experienced perhaps the deepest transformation. Construcciones Mendoza remained a powerful company, but now it operated under new principles: sustainability, social responsibility, and a deep respect for human well-being. One particularly sunny day, Raphael contemplated from his office the gardens of the mansion where Elena and Ulysses, now teenagers, chatted animatedly. Their friendship had grown over the years, strengthening with each challenge overcome, with each secret shared. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Quintero is here for the meeting," his assistant announced. Raphael took a deep breath. "Let him in." Jorge Quintero entered with a firm step, but his usual arrogance seemed to have diminished. The years hadn't been kind to him. His construction company had lost prestige due to several scandals over irregular practices, and now faced serious financial difficulties. "Mendoza," he greeted dryly. "Thank you for receiving me." Raphael indicated a chair in front of his desk. "Please sit down." Silence stretched for a few moments, laden with history and tension. "I never thought I'd be in this position," Quintero finally admitted, his voice revealing the effort it cost him to utter those words. "Asking for help from a man I considered weak for having scruples for years." Raphael observed him carefully. "Times change, Quintero, and sometimes people do too." "My company is on the verge of bankruptcy," Quintero continued, direct as always. "Your lawyers have proposed an absorption. I would retain a small percentage and a management position, but essentially, I would be surrendering." Raphael nodded. "It's a fair proposal, considering the circumstances." "It is," Quintero admitted, surprising Raphael. "But what I don't understand is why. Why not just let me fall and buy the remains? It would be cheaper, and after our history, more satisfying." Raphael smiled slightly, remembering the man he was. the one who would have done exactly that. Do you remember our phone conversation years ago? You asked me if I had become soft. Quintero nodded, uncomfortable. At the time, I thought I understood the lesson I had learned. I thought it was simply about being more human, more compassionate. But over time, I understood that it was something deeper. Raphael stood up, walking towards the window. It's not just about being kind. It's about recognizing the value that others can bring, even when they are different from you, even when they have been your adversaries. Quintero looked at him confused. I don't follow. Your company has problems. Yes, you've made mistakes, some serious ones. But you've also built a structure with talented people and developed innovative methods that could benefit us both if we work together instead of against each other. Quintero blinked, visibly surprised. Are you saying that you really want me to be part of your team? Isn't this just a formality before you throw me out? Raphael turned to him. I'm saying that we all deserve a second chance. I received mine when I needed it most, from someone I had underestimated. Quintero seemed to reflect, his eyes scanning the office until they stopped on a framed photograph on the desk. Elena and Ulysses smiling at the camera. The autistic boy, he murmured. I've heard rumors that he saved your daughter somehow. He did much more than that, Raphael replied. He saved me too. He taught me that sometimes wisdom and strength come from where we least expect them. Quintero fell silent, processing the words. The proposal still stands, Raphael continued, but there is a non-negotiable condition. Which one? Total transparency and a real commitment to the company's new values. It's non-negotiable. Quintero looked him directly in the eye, and for the first time Raphael saw in his eyes not the usual arrogance, but a spark of something akin to respect. I accept, he finally said. The two men shook hands, sealing much more than a business deal. It was the recognition of a truth that Raphael now lived every day, that true power lies not in crushing others, but in uplifting them. As Quintero left, Raphael returned to the window. In the garden, Elena was now laughing at something Ulysses had said. Isabel, Ulysses's mother, had joined them and was overseeing a barbecue that Victoria, the housekeeper, was preparing. The scene filled Raphael with a warmth he remembered more and more frequently. His family, once reduced to him and Elena, had expanded to include people he would never have imagined. Isabel, with her unwavering dignity, had become a close friend and a maternal figure for Elena, who had lost her own mother too young. Victoria, always efficient but previously distant, now allowed herself to show affection, treating Ulysses like the grandson she never had. And Ulysses was a constant presence, a daily reminder of the miracle that had transformed their lives. The intercom rang again. Sir, you have a call from the Medical Research Center, his assistant announced. Raphael picked up the phone with interest. Some time ago, he had established a foundation to research and develop new diagnostic methods for poisoning and environmental diseases. His goal was to ensure that no other family went through what his had suffered due to a misdiagnosis. Rafael Mendoza speaking. Mr. Mendoza, I'm Dr. Herrera, a female voice replied. I have excellent news. The early diagnostic method we've been developing has passed all preliminary tests. With your approval, we want to begin clinical trials as soon as possible. Raphael smiled, feeling a deep satisfaction. That's wonderful news, Doctor. You have my full approval. What would be the next step? We would need to expand the team and... The doctor hesitated for a moment. There's a young man who has assisted us with some aspects of the project. His ability to identify patterns has been invaluable. I wondered if we could formally incorporate him, even as a consultant. His name is Ulysses. Raphael was surprised only for an instant, before a smile spread across his face. Of course, Doctor. I know Ulysses personally and can attest to his extraordinary abilities. You have my full support to incorporate him into the project. Upon hanging up, Raphael felt moved by how fate continued to intertwine their paths. Ulysses, the boy who had saved Elena by identifying the true cause of her illness, was now helping to develop technology that could save thousands more. He decided to go down to the garden to join his family. As he walked through the halls of his mansion, he vividly remembered those dark days when he thought he would lose Elena, the pain, the despair, and then the almost miraculous appearance of that boy with deep eyes whom everyone underestimated. Dad, Eleanor exclaimed upon seeing him, beckoning him closer. Ulysses is telling us about his project at the research center. It's fascinating. Raphael sat down next to them, enjoying the enthusiasm with which Ulysses explained the complex molecular patterns he had identified, patterns that were invisible to traditional researchers, but that were obvious to him. It's like seeing music, Ulysses explained, with that peculiar eloquence he had developed over the years. Where others see unconnected data, I see a symphony, a composition where each element has its place. Isabel watched her son with silent pride, her eyes shining. Years of struggle, of misunderstanding, of closed doors, had given way to a recognition that once seemed impossible. Ulysses, Raphael said when the young man paused, I just spoke with Dr. Herrera. She told me about your contribution to the project, and they want to formally incorporate you into the team. Ulysses's eyes lit up. Really? Do you think I can do it? Not only do I think you can, Raphael replied with conviction, I know you'll do it extraordinarily well. Elena hugged Ulysses impulsively, while Isabel murmured a silent thank you. Raphael then remembered something Ulysses had said years ago, when he was still a child and they had just met. I want the next time I see someone like me, different, strange in their eyes, not to judge them so quickly. At that time, Raphael had promised to try, unsure if he could keep it. Now looking around him, at this diverse group of people who had become his family, he understood that that promise had been the beginning of his true transformation. That night, after everyone had left, Raphael found Elena in the library, studying for her medical exams. Dad, she said, looking up from her books, can I ask you something? Of course, Princess. Sometimes I wonder, if I hadn't gotten sick, if Ulysses had never come to our door, what would we be like now? Raphael considered the question, allowing himself to imagine an alternative life, one where he would have remained the man he was, powerful, feared, but fundamentally alone. I think we would be poorer, he finally replied. Not in money, of course, but in what truly matters. Elena nodded, understanding. What impresses me most about Ulysses isn't just his intelligence, you know. It's how he sees the world. How he sees people beyond appearances. It's an extraordinary gift, Raphael agreed. And you learned from him, Elena continued, with that insight that always surprised him. Before you were different, harder, more closed off. Raphael smiled, remembering. The old Rafael Mendoza wouldn't have given a second chance to someone like Jorge Quintero, nor would he have valued people like Isabel or Ulysses. I like this Rafael Mendoza better, Elena said with a warm smile. Me too, Princess. Me too. The following weeks brought new progress. The diagnostic project was advancing by leaps and bounds, thanks to Ulysses's contributions. Construcciones, Mendoza and Quintero's former company, were beginning a merger process that, surprisingly, was developing with fewer conflicts than expected. Elena excelled in her studies, inspired by her own experience and Ulysses's example. One afternoon, while Raphael was examining documents in his office, he received an unexpected visitor. It was Dr. Velasco, the physician who had insisted on Elena's degenerative diagnosis, refusing to consider other hypotheses. Mr. Mendoza, the doctor greeted, visibly uncomfortable. I appreciate your time. Raphael invited him to sit, observing him with curiosity. Dr. Velasco had been one of the few professionals who hadn't admitted his mistake, even after the intoxication was confirmed. I came because... The doctor hesitated, searching for the words. Because I need to acknowledge my mistake. Not only the wrong diagnosis, but my refusal to accept that I could be wrong. Raphael listened in silence, letting him continue. I've been following the development of the early diagnosis project that your foundation is funding. It's revolutionary. The doctor paused, and I heard that a large part of the credit belongs to a young man named Ulysses, the same young man I dismissed when he suggested that his daughter's condition could be poisoning. Raphael nodded slowly. It's true. I was so sure of my experience, of my knowledge, Velasco continued, so confident that I couldn't see what a child with no formal medical training managed to perceive. Ulysses sees the world differently, Raphael explained. Not better or worse, simply different. And sometimes that distinct perspective is exactly what we need. The doctor agreed, thoughtfully. I also came to offer something. I want to collaborate with your foundation, specifically in educational programs for doctors, to teach them to listen, to consider alternative perspectives, to recognize that knowledge can come from unexpected sources. Raphael smiled, extending his hand. "It would be an honor to have your experience, Dr. Velasco. Both the experience of your successes and your mistakes." The doctor shook his hand, visibly relieved. "Thank you, Mr. Mendoza." That same afternoon, Raphael shared the conversation with Elena and Ulysses while they strolled through the mansion's gardens. "So even the proud Dr. Velasco admitted he was wrong," Elena commented, impressed, "and wants to help other doctors avoid making the same mistake," Raphael added. Ulysses, who was walking a little ahead, fascinatedly observing a butterfly landing on a flower, stopped and turned to them. "It's not just about admitting mistakes," he said with that clarity that always surprised them. "It's about understanding that we all see the world through a filter. Our experiences, our knowledge, our expectations, everything colors what we perceive." Raphael and Elena listened attentively. "Doctors see through the filter of their training," Ulysses continued. "It's valuable, necessary, but sometimes that same filter prevents them from seeing other possibilities. I see through a different filter, not better, just different. And that difference allowed you to see what they couldn't," Elena completed. Ulysses agreed, turning his attention back to the butterfly that was now fluttering before him. "Each person has a unique filter. Imagine what we could see, what we could understand, if we learned to value all these different perspectives, instead of insisting that only one is correct." Raphael contemplated Ulysses with renewed admiration. This young man, whom he had once considered just a brat, possessed a wisdom that many adults, including himself in his time, would never achieve. "You're right, Ulysses," Raphael said, "and I believe that's the most valuable lesson you've taught me." The three continued their walk in comfortable silence, each absorbed in their own thoughts. Raphael reflected on the long road traveled, on how a casual, or perhaps not so casual encounter, had changed the course of so many lives. He thought of Elena, now recovered and with a bright future ahead, of Ulysses, whose extraordinary gift was no longer seen as a peculiarity, but as an invaluable talent, of Isabel, who had gone from a single mother struggling to survive to a woman respected and valued for her strength, of himself, transformed from a ruthless businessman to a man capable of seeing the value in vulnerability. And as the rays of the setting sun bathed the garden in a golden light, Raphael Mendoza felt a deep gratitude, not only for the second chance he had been given, but for the lesson he had learned, that sometimes true wisdom comes in the form of a child who sees the world through different eyes, a child who, with a simple whisper, had healed not only a body, but also a heart. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Elena asked, noticing his pensive expression. Raphael smiled, wrapping her in a hug. "About the luck we have, Princess. About the luck we have." And as Ulysses joined them, enthusiastically pointing out a cloud formation on the horizon that, according to him, formed a perfect mathematical pattern, Raphael knew for sure that this unusual family, built not on blood ties, but on bonds of understanding and mutual respect, was the greatest treasure he could ever imagine. The boy who had once been scorned for being different had ended up teaching everyone the invaluable worth of that difference. And this teaching, more than any material wealth, was the true legacy they would all share forever.